Namaste viewers. I welcome you all in the book launch of Bengal's Hindu Holocaust, the Partition of India and its Aftermath. Today we are having very special guest with us, Sri Tathagat Roy and Dr. Sachi Dastidar. Dr. Sachi Dastidar is the author of this book, and Sri Tathagat Roy doesn't need any introduction. He has been the former governor of Meghalaya and Tripura. So before we begin, I would like to tell you something about Garuda Prakashan. As you all know that Garuda has been bringing a lot of books which are having a nationalistic importance and which are very much important for the cause of Indic civilization. We are continuously bringing such kind of books to you. So let us start this book release session. So here is the book. So this is the book for which we are going to have the release.
Thank you.
Bengal Hindu Holocaust.
I'm anxious to waiting to get it in my hand.
Yes. Very soon you will be getting it. Okay. So friends, since we are having Sri Tathagat Royji with us, and he is having very short time, so I would like to request Tathagat Royji to speak about this subject and say some words on this book.
Thank you, Ankurji. Actually, it gives me great pleasure to participate in this book launch program for two reasons. That this is on a subject that is very dear to my heart. And the book has been written by a classmate of mine, Sachi G Dastidar, whose full name is Sachi G Dastidar. He was a batchmate of mine in Bengal Engineering College. Although in different subjects, he was in architecture, I was in civil engineering. And we met up after many, many years. And we discovered that we are both vitally interested in this subject. Let me tell you about the subject first, very brief. You see, whenever people used to talk of partition, they used to talk of partition of Punjab. How many people were killed, how people had to move, what was the biggest migration in human history, etc. But the fact that a partition had taken place in Bengal and it had terrible consequences, which I have seen with my own eyes, was a thing which is not mentioned by anyone, including the victims of the partition. There are umpteen books in Bengali which mention what had happened to the refugees after they came to India, that they were neglected by the Nehru government, that they were shuttled from here to there, that they had to live under subhuman conditions. Some of them went to Andamans, and leftist parties discouraged them from going to Andamans. They went to Dandakarana, then the Marijap incident and all these things. But what happened behind the curtain of East Pakistan and Bangladesh subsequently, to a much lesser extent, has been completely given a go-by, completely swept under the carpet by the victims themselves, not to speak of others. This is a thing which had given me great anguish. As a matter of fact, when we were in college, when Sachi was also in college, we had a batch from East Pakistan joining us because they had been driven out during the Hazrat Bal, that was in 1964. They had been driven out of East Pakistan because of that Hazrat Bal incident, the reaction to the Hazrat Bal incident. You probably know about it. I don't want to take time over it. But from them, I came to know in what manner these Hindus had suffered. And that kindled my anguish, my thoughts about it. And I decided that at some point of time, I would somehow find out what had happened to them, and then let it be known to the rest of the world. Then one thing led to another, and then somehow I could not get to do it. But at the same time, this thing went on. I mean, the thing was kept simmering, so to say. Then in the 80s, 1980s, I regrew an interest in this subject. I started interviewing people, and then I found out there was some literature, mostly in Bengali, some literature on what had happened to these people. And then what I came to know of was astounding. So I decided to write a book about it. I couldn't get a proper publisher, so I had to give it to Garuda Prakashan, to which edition Sachi has referred in his bibliography. But that was only the first edition and a very satisfactory production. I just like to let Sachi know that the fourth edition of this book is just now about to come out. And the third edition is this one. Third edition is this one. The title of the book is My People Uprooted. And the editor and the publisher of the book is Synergy Books India of Daryanganj, Delhi. Now, let me stop talking about my own book and get on to Sachi's book. You see, the great thing about Sachi's book, in which he steals a march over my book, is that he has been able to travel very extensively in Bangladesh, what was formerly East Pakistan. And through this travel, he has been able to know much more about certain aspects of the pogrom that drove the Hindus out of East Pakistan and Bangladesh. Whereas my knowledge has mostly come from documented facts and people who have come over from the erstwhile East Pakistan or Bangladesh to India by interviewing them. As I said earlier, doing this, I had come across considerable resistance. They didn't want to talk about it. I asked them, why don't you want to talk about it? They said, let bygones be bygones. I said, what the hell are you talking about? In that case, let us go by to history. Let us bury all history. There is no point in learning history. Then they didn't have an answer to that, so they kept silent, but they are still reluctant. Then I kept on laboring, and eventually I found out that not only I, but in parallel, Sachi was also researching this subject. In fact, he had set up a body, that Partition Documentation Project, for this purpose, and he was doing a very good job of it. So I have met him off and on when he comes to India, and also when I have gone to the United States, which I would have done by now if only this COVID thing had not intervened. Anyway, I expect to go there in November and expect to meet him. But meanwhile, I must congratulate the depth and the width both of the book with which he has dealt the subject. One thing that I would say, in which his book is more extensive, is the pogrom of 1971. In 1971, there was a horrible anti-Hindu pogrom all over erstwhile East Pakistan when the Pakistan army, they massacred Hindus all over the place, citizens of their own country. Their only fault, their only crime were that they were not Muslims, and they were massacred. They were killed. They were killed in horrible ways. As a matter of fact, just to give you one example, we all know about Jallianwala Bagh incident. But in Jallianwala Bagh in Patna, in Punjab, in 1919, how many people were killed? I think some 1,600 people were killed. As compared to that, in a place called Chuknagar, in 1971, I think it was May, 10,000 people were killed, 10,000, almost all of them Hindus, mostly a lot of women and children by the Pakistani army. Can you imagine it? 10,000 people killed in one day. There's a river by the name of Bhadra which flows by the town of Chuknagar. The water of the river was turned literally red. Now, my entire idea of writing this book, being interested in this subject, is to encourage research in this subject. And very happily, Sachi has also been working towards this objective, and together we will be, I am sure, we will be able to encourage research in this subject so that this long hidden, sordid history comes out and becomes known to the successors, to the descendants of the people who were affected by the pogrom and who, for some strange reasons, tried to hide it. The Punjab victims have not tried to hide it. The Punjab, at least dozen books have been written on the Punjab Holocaust. There have been books written by Khushwant Singh, both fiction and fact. Books written by Khushwant Singh, fiction books by Sadat Hasan Manto on the other side, then by Bhisham Shani, and on the Indian side, books have been written by Khosla, G.S. Khosla, and also a very important book by a Britisher called Pendered Moon, who was in the ICS and who was in Punjab at that time. But nobody so far has written a single book in English except Sachi and me and one person called A.J. Kamra. A.J. Kamra was a Balochi refugee from Balochistan, who had started writing a book, but halfway through he died. And then his book was completed by the Indologist and researcher into Muslim pogroms called Kundra Delst. We all know his name. So this is more or less what I wanted to say about this book. It gives me great pleasure to participate in this webinar and to congratulate my batchmate, my college friend Sachi, for having done such wonderful work, and moreover having set up an institution, this Partition documentation project, as well as his Provini Foundation, through which he is serving this cause. I am sure that through our combined efforts, we will be able to create the interest that in the exodus of Hindus from East Bengal that we have been trying so long. And thank you, all of you. Thank you very much, particularly Sachi and Rahul and Ankurji for having hosted this show and invited me to speak here. Thank you very, very much. I'm sorry, I'll have to depart in another 5-10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tathagata Royji. You gave us your very precious time and valuable thoughts. Now I would like to request our author, Sri Sachi Dastidar ji, to share his views on this subject. And before he proceeds, I would like to welcome Sri Rajat Mitra ji, our honorable guest. He has just joined us. So now I would like to request Dr. Sachi Dastidar ji to speak about his book.
Namaskar and greetings. Let me thank Garuda Prakashan, Ankur Babu for taking up the project. I am honored that two eminent authors, Honorable Tathagata and Rajat Mitra, for joining the book release. This is update of my book, Empire's Last Casualty, Indian Subcontinent's Vanishing Hindu and Other Minorities, published by Pharma KLM in 2008. This is the original book, and actually this is the update. Lot more documents have been added to that. Especially after Bangladesh did this commission and tried the mass murderers, genocide makers, lot of these testimonies came out how these genociders were killing majority Hindus, sometimes Muslims too. So I have added that. Uh, Let me also thank Dr. Rudra Talukdar, Milita, Dr. Shefali Dastidar, Subho Rai, and Dr. Joyita Dastidar for supporting the project to raise funds for our Indian subcontinent partition documentation project. Book subject is very, very painful, yet neglected and censored. This is update of my family story as to how they were cleansed from their beloved land, whose soil, water, and grass is needed from birth to wedding to death rituals. No one showed any remorse. Even the victims rising to power in India while shedding tears for faraway lands that they barely heard of. Collection of data and witnessing devastation firsthand caused extreme pain. I thank brave Muslim and Hindu friends who took us around. Many of my friends and family and friends, including Muslims and Hindus, friends who took us around and who helped us. Additionally, American, Indian, Bangladeshi, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Jain, and others have helped us build schools and hostels for the poor and the orphaned in Bangladesh and in India's West Bengal, Assam, Mizoram states, creating bridges of hope for us. We started by selling tea for 50 cents here in New York at Durga Puja. Now we have built, I believe, 14 or 15 brick and concrete buildings. Sorry. I don't know if Rahul has time um, to show some slides which changed my life from an amnesia affected, genocide neglecting, naive teenager to a human being. I want to add, though, that many lives of non believers have no value to some. Yet there are many devoted believers who risk their lives to protect us. I am also honored that Bangladesh government invited me to speak in March 2021 at the 50th anniversary of independence and Pakistan genocide and Hindu extermination campaign. I know, in spite of my effort for over 3 decades, I haven't been able to document all the killings and cleansings. This book documents killing of 3.1 million Hindus since Noakhali pogrom of 1946 during British rule organized by Bengal's ruling Muslim League Party through 2001 census. That is from 1946 to 2001 census. It documents the loss of about 50 million Hindus from Bangladesh in barely 50 plus years, larger than 140 nations of the UN. As I was updating this edition, I also realized that Bengali killing disease also affected Assam when thousands of Assam's indigenous Bengali Hindus were killed, especially during Bongal Khada pogrom of 1962, joined by Bangladeshi Assam Muslims. In Tripura, the newly converted Christian-led killing of Bengali Hindus during Mandai massacre in 1980. In Meghalaya, selected killings and cleansings by people claiming to be Christian tribes, which continues as of today. And during the rule of West Bengal's Bangladeshi Indian Communist Marxist chief minister, he killed scores of Hindu monks and nuns in the heart of Kolkata, killed thousands of oppressed caste peasants in Morijhapi, killed many in Nondigram and other places. From Noakhali to Dhaka to Khulna, Morijhapi to Pakistan's Hindu and secular Muslim genocide, no one has been prosecuted. Why has the world forgotten us? Our lives do not matter? Even early in India, one of the most racist laws ever created was Nehru-Liakat Treaty, which is included in my book's appendix. Nehru-Liakat Treaty, which officially denied rehabilitation of partition refugees from the East, read Bengali Hindu, while rehabilitating refugees from the West. It is absolutely racist law, and we supported it. Our parliament supported it. Unless we are wise, there may be other catastrophe in Bengal, India, and subcontinent. I have not found in human history when victims' families do not protest killings and cleansing their own families, but show fake concern for unknown distant lands. Just recently, Palestinians and Muslims worldwide protested against Israel. Cubans protested worldwide for their homeland. This is great. Did you ever see that Bangladeshi Indians, whom we also call Bangals, East Bengali, refugee, and East Pakistan, or Hindus in general, have ever protested killing their own families or supported secular Muslims who try to protect minorities, especially when they rule two Indian states, West Bengal and Tripura, and hold top jobs in Delhi? My New York, actually there's a demonstration by secular Muslims and Hindus against yesterday, day before's mass destruction of Hindu temples and businesses in Khulna in Bangladesh. Yet there is no demonstration in West Bengal or Delhi or anywhere. This is not to be anti-Muslim, but it is has to be protection of human rights. Why we are such, we got to think. Should you find additional information, you're welcome to send to our Partition Center. Additional information of clinic killing and cleansing. Let me also appeal to you to please help us build a museum like Holocaust Museum or Black, Slave, Irish, Jewish, Christian, Armenian, Palestine Apartheid Museum to save our story. So let me stop here. By the way, we have a small museum here, but we need more space and resources. Dhanyabad and thanks. So let me show you a few of the slides that Kunal has uploaded. So this is next slide. Next one, please. Yeah, so this is my life-turning event when we first went to see our ancestors. No, first one. Went to see our ancestral homeland. This is our son and daughter who were little. This was in 1982. Let's go back to the first one. Second one, please. So how serious is the problem? Is as I bought the ticket in Dhaka, somebody a top official, a Muslim gentleman, heard that let's go to the first one. Keep the first one. He heard that we are going there by ourselves. First one, please, not the second one. So he said, do you know our plight of Hindus here? You don't know. So this is the guy, a Muslim, Abdur Rahman Talukdar, who literally jumped on the ship in the evening with his little daughter, Jolly, that we want to come to protect you. And so overnight, as you know, from Dhaka to Borishal, it takes overnight. So we have people like that. And then we met a godlike person. This is Rakhal Sadhu, who became our family. We'll come to that. So they are the people like that who try to protect you. Yet in West Bengal and India and rest of the world, they do not tell us. But this guy took overnight journey. And next one. Next one, please. Rahul, next one. Number 2, number 3. Please. Okay. So this is the guy when we went to visit. This is a gentleman who moved to our home of 500 years. And so we went to visit, and this is his wife. So this turns your idea. Next slide. Rahul. Yeah. So this is when we saw our remains of our 15th century Sri Vishnu Mandir. Our Kali Mandir was demolished during 1950 pogrom. This building was destroyed, but the Sri Vishnu Murti survived. So in 1987, my older brother went there, Mezda, and rebuilt that. Next. So next slide. Yes, so this is the opening in 1987 of our 15th century mandir, and this gentleman, a priest, he wrote me such a letter that I should be framing it, saying it never would have thought of. And these are the buildings extended family lived there, so uncle and aunts, that their homes were taken over. Next slide. Next. Please, next. Okay, so this is the time and the back there is a 350-year-old temple. In 1990 and 1992 pogrom, people came to destroy it. So I wrote to Bangladesh government, maybe God knows, 100 letters, including President, Prime Minister, everybody. And the Bangladesh government wrote back to me in writing that we're going to fix your temple. So in 96, when I went, by the way, these people came to know from the government that it would be saved. So as I come, these wonderful high-class poor Hindus started chanting, "Here comes the God from the heaven." So it just touches you and forever stays with you. Next slide. Rahul, next slide. Yeah, so this is the one we built our laying foundations, stone laying, Bhit Puja, including there is a very top Muslim there. So he is laying the Bhit. As you can see, they are very poor, very, very high class. I call them high class Hindus, not me. So their saving is a historic thing in Bangladesh, maybe first time ever since partition. Next slide. Next slide, please. So here's the building that was saved, and now it is included in a book by UNESCO as a heritage building, heritage mandir of Bangladesh. And this is the one on the building we built. Named it after my two mothers, Niharkana Bhakta Basha Vidyalaya. So we are building a second story now, the school we are building. So this is a gathering. And the bottom is my wife's maternal ancestral home of tens of generations. No, I'm still there. So they call it headmaster's house because they were headmaster for many generations. The guy on the left moved into their home after the pogrom. Next. So next slide, please. Next slide. So there are life-turning moments now as my wife went to their house and there were three very, very poor workers. Monindra Babu, Monindra Gharami, Subhash Babu, Subhash Kulu, Nogen Babu, Nogen Kulu. They were working on the field. And when they saw me, first time in my life, somebody asked me if I were Hindu. I said, yes. So then they jumped over a ditch and said, "Can I touch you?" I said, "Of course, yes." I said, "But why?" He says, if I touch you, we get ball pie, we get strength. It stays with me forever. These three wonderful gentlemen, Moninder Gharami, Subhash Kulu, and Nogen Kulu. It brings me tears that people would think by touching me how bad our middle class uneducated families who rule West Bengal and Tripura call themselves elite has not been able to help any of these people. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. No, the big. Okay, this is a time where we in Noakhali we help Gandhi Ashram to give scholarship to students. So give only $12 or something that say that the girl can stay there. This girl's father died and mother in rural areas have no income. So they came and asked us if we give them $12 or $14, whatever. So the mother said, we'll still send the two kids to school, which we agreed. Generally, our rule is you have to stay in the institution. But 3-4 years later, or 2-3 years later, when I went to Noakhali, this girl from somewhere comes and jumps into my feet, touches my feet, say, "Grandpa, I'm a high school graduate and now I'm going to college. I'm teaching students, we call tutoring, and we can protect our family now." I mean, it gives me great pleasure. Next one. Yes, please. Number 11. Quickly. Okay. This is when we went to visit from 1500 we lived in Lakshman Kati village. Before that we lived in Gava village. Where we went, we found one Ghosh Dastidar family. So then we found out there were 23 generations apart. We have a family chart, and they welcomed us to their temple. So we prayed there. Next one. Next slide. Next slide. So this is my maternal grandparents' home of 30 plus generation where they were evicted. My grandparents were very politically active. My grandma and grandfather and two uncles spent over 17 years in criminal British prison. I call British rule as a criminal rule. So but then after partition, they were driven out from their home and became a homeless. I wrote a story how we ended up at a refugee camp in India from a very, very top. Next slide. And these are the people who came to welcome us. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is something, one friend, a Muslim friend, sent me that how sad plight is. This is Birojbala Devnath near Brahmanbaria. So they were tiny plot, maybe a couple of 100 square feet, maybe a homestead, ancestral homeland. They were asked to go to India. They said, what can we do? And she was working as a maid. This is our home. Then the whole family were kidnapped and cut into small pieces so that they could fit into a drum. When I read this, I said, I have to go there and ask for forgiveness. So I went to Dhaka and asked one of my Muslim friends who found another Muslim driver from there who took them, and this is a shrine. I don't know why rest of they call themselves Hindus or Indians or human cannot go there as Bangladeshis have done that. This is shocking to me. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is in 1990 program. I went from village to village. I was taken by local people. This is one of the homes of Mashi, I call aunts. This remains of her home of hundreds of years. Next. So when you see these, life really changes. Next, please. So this is, Bangladesh, Pakistani genocide and Hindu extermination campaign started here. This is Jagannath Hall. There is a memorial there, a list of 64 Hindu students and staff names who were killed. There's a video on YouTube too, taken by a professor, how Pakistani, even few students who were not fully killed, when they got up, how they came back and shot them to death. Where's there any protest in Kolkata? Supposedly, we are a revolutionary city. I was part of that. I was taken to marches when I was a teen. Next. This is Ramna Kalibari, 9th century Kali Mandir. So this was the remains. No, don't change it. So these are the names of 100 victims who were priests, nuns, devotees who were hacked and then burned alive by Pakistani army and Bengali Islamists. And this is the remains of the temple. And so this guy one of the young men took me, and this was a Muslim guy who was a groundkeeper. He says, Uncle, come and offer here durba grass and flower. So we picked up glass flower and offered. So we have, next one, please. So go see these shrines, see these victims. Next one, please. Next one, please. So this is the 1990 pogrom. I showed you 1992 pogrom, 90 pogrom. Next one, please. Same thing. Family after family, homes were completely burned down. Where was our revolutionaries doing? Or this communist party has turned into a communal party of India. So next is this 92 pogrom, where I witnessed myself 6 cremation areas destroyed. This is Jumala Prasad cremation area of Sylhet. I mean, why haven't you protested? Bangladeshi Muslims have done, secular Hindus have done. Next one, please. Next one. I'll jump 4,000 miles now. Next one, please. Rahul. Yeah, now I'm jumping to Peshawar, Pakistan, where my wife and I were invited to speak for their 150th commemoration of First War of Independence. So here we were. One of these people then asked me, said, "My friend, can you help us restore a pre-Islamic mandir, Shiv Mandir?" Next one, please. Next one, please. Rahul, next one, please. Rahul. So this is the Gorkotri Shiv Mandir. So after, my role was to write to Prime Minister, Chief Minister, Governor, and all of those things, which were hand-carried by one of those gentlemen. And then they started repairing it. And then in 2011, it was the first time Diwali was held. And Gorkotri Shiv Mandir, by the way, they said even Lord Buddha was here. That means 600 years before. So anyway, and then this is the last slide, how things are. After that conference, these two ladies kidnapped us. I use the term, not seriously. Literally, they kidnapped us and forced us to go to their home. They had the cell phone, they calculated our hotel. So they and the mother was so happy, Shakila families, that we were there with them for 2-3 days. Then when we made trips to Harappa, then Guru Nanak's birthplace, we took them. They were the first time they saw them. So we have, this is the other side, the positive side. We have to access these kinds of positive things to move forward. Let me end by saying, if I'm going to write here in the chat, if you have time, please take a look at. No, we don't need this. Is too much information, but I'm just going to write our web. Okay. I'm going to write a few web we have, then check YouTube. Channel, you can join it. Then we have Facebook. In YouTube, we have saved scores, hundreds of stories of refugees, victims, and survivors. If any of you would like to give us your story, please call us. Also, we have a blog which name is Empire's Last Casualty, MPI, sorry. So, by the way, I have had many books. I started my journey, I'll just take 30 seconds more. With this particular book, when I wrote in 1989, called Oi Bangla, Ei Bangla, Deshpotrika, it ran for, there was a write-up on this for about 6 months on the paper. Then came this book in 1991 called Ei Bangla, Oi Bangla, This Bengal, That Bengal in Bengali. I have had many other books, but recently this book was released. This book was released, Mukti, here in New York. Stories that I'm telling you narrated that, and also before that, 2015 edition is this one. Both are available on Amazon. With that, I'll thank you, and if you have further questions later on, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much. You have to unmute.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Dastidar, for writing such an important book. And as we all know, that talking about Hindu Holocaust is a kind of taboo, and very less Indians, very less Hindus are aware of this fact that more than 3 million Hindus have died in this, during the partition of Bangladesh, East Pakistan. So I would like to request our readers to go and buy this book. This is the book we are releasing today, Bengal's Hindu Holocaust, the partition of India and its aftermath, by Dr. Sachi G Dastidar. So now we are having Dr. Rajat Mitra ji with us. Uh, we all know that he is a psychologist and professor. So I would like to request Sri Rajat Mitra ji to share his views on this subject and on this book.
Uh, Thank you, Ankur ji, and thank you, Shochida, for being with you on the same platform. It's an honor for me to do that, and I can only say that I'm glad that I got some time before I could speak, because when Shochida was showing his slides, and it's something, it's very evocative, it's very painful. And what Ankur said, that I am a professor and a writer, but I am also at the same time a genocide researcher. I am studying genocide and mass violence. And what I feel is that we all have the same purpose, as to bring out the violence that has been inflicted on us Hindus, and about which we have remained silent. So I would like to begin by saying that genocides, they do two things. First of all, when they happen in silence, with total silence. The Jewish Holocaust happened with the world being silent. The Rwandan genocide happened in silence. The Armenian genocide happened in silence. All genocides, mass violence takes place in silence. But they cannot be kept in silence forever. The generation after that, or 2 or 3 generations later, it all comes up. And I want to ask that if we don't pick up this issue of genocide today and bring it in front of the world, are we leaving it for our future generations to face that and bring it up, which will be more traumatic for them to do so? Or do we, the present generation, bring it up and bring a closure to the whole issue? I don't want to leave the issue of facing the genocide and bringing it up for, say, the generation that comes after us. I want it to happen now in this generation. I want it to do it today, so that we know that what happened to our ancestors, and we can put a closure to it and move on from here, from the path of healing. Because the more we delay it, the more we keep on postponing this issue and make it harder and tougher. And if you don't confront genocide and mass violence immediately, then remember one thing, that there will be more genocides and mass violences to follow, until and unless we take effective steps to close it. So if we don't do it right now, we leave our future generations open to further violence and trauma. So what I think we need to do right now is to read books like what Shachida has written, read books about genocide, and create an awareness in our society, so that we can protect the coming generations from further trauma and violence. Hindu society has already faced enough trauma and violence. We have had going it for almost 1,000 years right now. Are we going to leave it further for many more years, for centuries? No. I earnestly believe that we must create a movement together right now which will put a closure to it by bringing it first to awareness. The second thing I want to say about Shochida's book is that it is not an easy book to read. It is a difficult book. It combines personal history along with the violence and the trauma that took place. And I would say, I would add one quality to this book is that it is a dangerous book because it would upset a lot of people. It brings to light things which people want to be hidden. They don't want it to come about. So all of us writers who are bringing up issues from the past and who are bringing up things which people don't know about, that is also so because some groups, some people have kept it hidden and they want to keep it hidden. And I want to thank Ankur ji for bringing out those very issues which I know that many people would rather see that it remains hidden. It authors obliterated and annihilated, washed out, it threatened, so that this kind of literature does not come about. This literature is not romantic literature. It is not a beach read. It is not an easy read. But then our society, I believe, stands at a crossroad where it needs to examine all these issues that it has postponed doing so for hundreds of years. We need to do so, otherwise, we will keep on repeating our history. And maybe the next time, whether there will be a next time or not, we really don't know. So it is time for us to Indians, for all Hindus, I would say, and also for Muslims, also for others, to read and to become aware of what is our past, own it up, and discuss it, and through discussion and creating awareness, put a closure to it. We have started on this great venture of creating awareness. 50 years back, it did not exist. 40 years back, it did not exist. 20 years back, also, it did not exist. It has only started right now. And let me say this that it starts in the midst of great resistance. There is resistance to this kind of literature. There are many people who do not want such books out in the market. There are many people who do not want such books to be read. They would do everything possible in their capacity to see that these books don't sorry, these books don't see the light of the day, that these books are not read by people, that somehow economically or in terms of advertising and others, these books do not get any publicity. So we are up against a very big wall which we have to cross in order to bring truth out. And I would say this that it is time that we, the Hindu society, need to bring the truth out. We are at a stage where we are mature enough to face what has happened to us in the past, bring it out into the open and create awareness. That we must do right now. And that is what Shochida's book uh, has the potential of doing. So I would request everyone to buy a copy and to read this, and I will spread the word about it along with all the other books that are coming out because they all represent a part of a, they're like a chain. It's like all the books, they have a common element, and that is to create awareness. So they are part of a whole unitary thing that we must Hindus right now do. Because if we don't do it right now, I do not know whether we will be able to do it for a long, long time to come. So this is a moment, and Shochida's book is timely, it's very topical, and I request everyone to read it. And I congratulate Shochida for having written it. I thank Ankur ji for having taken the pains to bring it out. It is not easy to do this. Ankur ji and Garuda, they are not ordinary publishers. They are not publishing books which are beach reads or which can be taken easily, for people as a light read. No, they they have to be read with a lot of courage. I know that somebody who was reading a book of similar nature, I will not name it, he was traveling by train when he had to take the book along, and he put a cover on that. So I said, why are you putting a cover on the book? So he says, because I don't want people to read the title and they will look at me askance. So while we can take Chetan Bhagat's books or Amish Tripaঠি's book or scores of other books, the books by Garuda Prakashan, probably many people read it with the cover on that, when they do so. So that also tells you that what kind of books are they and why we are still living in denial about facing our past, facing ourselves. And that is my earnest request, is that we stop that and we start the process which has begun. So with that, I stop here and pass it over to Ankur ji once again, saying thank you, dhanyavad. Ankur, can't hear you.
Can't unmute, please. Unmute.
So thank you so much, Rajat ji, for such an inspiring talk, and I mean, you really inspired a lot of our viewers and a lot of our readers. There might be some people who were still reading our books under some cover, but now this is the time we should remove all the covers and come out of our denial mode and face the reality, accept the reality, and create an awareness. So by this, I would like to take permission from our guest to end this session. And before ending up this session, I would like to thank Dr. Sachi Dastidar ji, who has written this wonderful book, and Shri Rajat Mitra ji, who has given his precious time to us, and Shri Tathagata ji, who is not with us now. So thank you so much, and thank you,
Thank
viewers.
you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.